gentlemen, welcome to Here Movie Podcast, your greatest source of superhero movie discussion in the multiverse. My name is Adam Portrais, and I'm joined by Sean Keenan.
Heidi can't wait till there's a better face for girl power.
And, of course, the girl power himself, Bruce Leslie.
I'm a prickly pear, and I'm also a post-apocalyptic kangaroo that can rap.
Oh, let me tell you, I'll be honest with you guys. I was going into today's movie expecting one thing. I got something that was that plus a billion times more. We'll be talking today about Tank Girl from 1995, I believe it is.
Yep.
It's going to be interesting. Now, this selection of this movie comes about because of the good people out at patreon.com/HMP who help support this show. This was
And thank you, everyone, by the way. Thank you.
Hard contested fight on this one. It was back and forth a little bit, but Tank Girl, by one vote, won. So that is today's movie, Tank Girl. Half of our supporters are like, yes, this is awesome, and I know that the other half are just like, why Tank Girl, why?
Yeah, I think there was one vote for any movie starring Slim Pickens, but we couldn't find one.
Yeah, we tried, but unfortunately, he only falls into a certain spectrum of movie.
This movie could use some Slim Pickens.
Hey, what couldn't? What couldn't? The man he's a genius. But yeah, thank you guys so much for that. And so I do want to say that we, as of the last time that we've come across here, we've gotten more stuff. More people have come on, joined the Patreon team and everything. And if my computer would, operate properly, I'd be able to tell you. Okay.
Yeah, the Patreon folks have been wonderful, man. I cannot believe how like awesome and generous and how many folks we've gotten on board the Patreon train so far.
Yeah, it's pretty astounding to me. So they the biggest ones that kind of stuck out here that I kind of wrote up because he actually wrote us an email here as well. This one is here we go. It was Alex. Alex sent us something and he jumped in at $20. Brian came in as well. It just there's several of them. I forget. My emails are all out of order. I thought they were better. Better. But the executive producers, let's just round them out here again because they are, kind of at the top of the bag here. We got brand new Carlton, and then we have Jeff, Alex, Ken, Robert, RocketFace, Matthew, Schnapp, Jim Beverly. These are the guys that come in at the top levels every month here, and it's really awesome that everyone comes and just, helps out people. And
you know what? If any of you executive producers have anything you're needing us to promote, please let us know so we give you guys the appropriate plugs every now and then.
Oh yeah, that'd be great. But that's a really great idea, Bruce.
And I say this because I like all these guys. Everyone who donates just anything is absolutely awesome. And something that I've decided to do just myself, and I think other people just tell me how this hits you, is basically, we all have probably, if we're lucky, we have about $25 at the end of the month that, we're willing to put anywhere. Me, what I'm starting to do right now is I'm dividing that out, $5 amongst 5 different creators. If everyone could do that for the people that, that they loved, their stuff, imagine how many people could have, something to continue going on with all of their, whatever it is that they're doing. Think about that. Just,
I'm trying to decipher from the portraits what you just were trying to say. What were you trying to say there?
It's a hippie idea,
I think you're saying
man.
It doesn't take much money to have a big impact.
Exactly, exactly. And if you spread it around to different creators, like everybody can grow. I don't know. It's real.
Or just give it all to us.
Just exactly. If you don't have 4 other people that you like, just give us all that money. That's fine with us too. I ain't gonna fight you. You'll want me to, but I'm not gonna. It won't happen. I'm a pacifist that way.
So
Patreon,
let's move this train on down the track.
Let's keep moving.
Patreon.com/HMP. So this one's from Jeff. He was one of the new ones. Hey guys, so I initially found this from Heroes and Villains and have now made it through all of the episodes. You guys are a trifecta of awesome. Sean's humor and insight, Bruce's ridiculously unfair amount of knowledge, and Adam's role as the glue that holds it all together make this a can't miss every week. After going through all the episodes, I had no choice but to become a member of Patreon. You guys are awesome. Keep up the good work, and thank you for all you do. No, thank you, Jeff. coming in there.
Jeff,
man.
somebody's getting a high five if I ever see you. I'll tell you that right now.
Good times, boy. It is good times. Well, all right, let's jump into it. Like we said, because of the Patreon, folks, they have chosen for us this week Tank Girl. Let's go ahead and give a listen to the trailer.
It's the year 2033. There's no law. No mercy.
You're gonna really love this one.
And no water.
There are 3 million liters of water underneath the blue dunes, and you will retrieve it.
The odds of survival are 1,000 to 1. And that's just the way she likes it.
My. Talented, isn't she?
Hi! Feeling a little inadequate?
She'll be fun to break.
I like pain.
Lori Petty.
Did I hurt you yet?
Ice-T.
Turn this boat around and you're gonna get us all killed.
And Malcolm McDowell.
Just how many of my men did you kill?
United Artists Pictures presents
Just say, I won.
I won.
Tank Girl.
What's it like knowing you're about to die?
You don't!
All right, that was a trailer for Tank Girl, our Patreon review of this month. Here's the IMDb plotline. A girl is among the few survivors of a dystopian Earth. Riding a war tank, she fights against the tyranny of a mega corporation that dominates the remaining portable water supply of the planet. This is starring Lori Petty, Ice-T, Naomi Watts. You got a little guy named Malcolm McDowell in there and a few others. Bruce, I think this is a movie that a lot of people know about, a lot of people have heard about. I don't know if a lot of people know its actual comic book connections.
Well, Tank Girl, the comic and the movie, is not real strong on narrative, and it's kind of all over the place. And my comic book connection in honor of Tank Girl is going to be kind of like that this week. But Tank Girl is a British comic book created by Jamie Hewlett and Alan Martin. Tank Girl's name is Rebecca Buck, but it's later revealed that her full birth name was Fonzie Rebecca Buckler. She drives a tank, which is also her home. She's declared an outlaw for her sexual inclinations and her substance abuse problems. And the comic centers on her misadventures with her boyfriend, Booga, a mutant kangaroo. Now, it may be a big shock to hear this, but one of Tank Girl's creators was in a UK punk band. And also, Tank Girl has been embraced by the Riot Girl female punk folks. She is an anarchist and a bit unpredictable. And here is a description of the original concept art for Tank Girl by one of her creators. She was a grotty-looking beefer of a girl brandishing an unfeasible firearm. One of our friends was working on a project to design a pair of headphones and was basing his design on the type of tank used in World War II. His studio in Worthing was littered with loads of photocopies of combat vehicles. Alan Martin pinched one of the images and gave it to Jamie, who then stuck it behind his grotty girl illustrations and then added a logo which read Tank Girl. The Tank Girl series first appeared in a fanzine called Adam Tan in the 1980s, but the first commercial publication was Deadline in 1988. She quickly became popular as a cartoon mirror of the growing empowerment of women in punk rock culture. Officially licensed Tank Girl underwear were produced to support a protest against Margaret Thatcher's anti-gay legislation. I wish I could come up with some appropriately cheesy pun for counterculture knickers, but I can't. However, I heard Keira Knightley say knickers once, and it was adorable. Now, Penguin, the largest publishing company in Britain, bought the rights to collect the strips as a book, and before long, Tank Girl had been published in Spain, Italy, Germany, Scandinavia, Argentina, Brazil, and Japan, with several U.S. publishers fighting over the license. Finally, Dark Horse Comics won, and the strips were reprinted in color. And I want you to know that I spelled color with a U for those fans in the UK. Now, some trivia about Tank Girl. Her first words were cauliflower penis. When she was 7, she started a collection of novelty pencil sharpeners. That collection is now housed in the National Museum of Modern Pencil Sharpeners in Sydney, Australia. She once got in trouble for failing to deliver colostomy bags to President Hogan. Oh, I forgot to mention that Paul Hogan is the president of Australia in the Tank Girl comics. Well, anyway, the failure to give Crocodile Dundee his colostomy bags resulted in him publicly embarrassing himself at a large international trade conference. She's prone to random acts of violence, hair dyeing, flatulence, nose picking, vomiting, spitting, and more than occasional drunkenness. She also has the ability to outrun any ice cream van. Tank Girl's stories, like I said, aren't real strong on narrative or continuity, instead choosing a punk rock surrealistic sensibility. She performs vaguely defined missions for an equally vaguely defined agency of some kind, and she usually appeared in short formats like strips or 2-page stories. Also, Tank Girl owes a creative debt to the 1984 film Supergirl, because after seeing that movie, Martin and Hewlett had gotten into the habit of appending girl to various characters or people. So that drawing that I talked about became Tank Girl in honor of 1984's big screen Supergirl. Now, in the series, her associates include Subgirl, Jet Girl, and Boat Girl. So a short-form comic that was inspired, at least in part, by a bad movie may not be the best choice for Hollywood to bring to the big screen. I won't show my hand soon, but the creators of Tank Girl, Martin and Hewlett, were reportedly dissatisfied with the film.
People being dissatisfied with comic works? No, not. But yeah. I'll be honest with you, Bruce. I mean, this sounded exactly like, what we saw on screen. I don't know how what your beef is, but you shouldn't have one. It's good.
Oh, yeah, man. Yeah. That's what happens. You just throw a bunch of stuff together that stands alone just fine. You put it all together and it's a mess.
It sounds like the subtext of the comic, there's an actual subtext to all the comics, but there's the subtext of this movie isn't this girl awesome?
Yeah, there might be something to that. And something else that caught my attention, too, the animated sequences and like the animated transition screens, I guess you would say. Comic book movies do this a lot, and for some reason, most of them don't actually use the comic art, and that always bugs me. And this is another one of those where, the comic art was so popular, they decided to make a movie about it, and then they decided it wasn't good enough for the said movie.
Yeah, there's a lot of choices in this movie where it just leaves you scratching your head. Yeah, and before we really go into damning this movie, because it feels like we all are about to, I want to start off by saying that I understand that this movie is in the sweet spot for some people where they love this movie and they love the character of Tank Girl in particular, because it's one of those movies to me where like. I have that friend who loves the movie The Shadow, even though they know that it's not a good movie. But there are people who absolutely must love this movie Tank Girl, because it's in that sweet spot where you were probably a kid. It was probably on HBO, and you watch it and you were like, oh my God, I can't believe that this lady is saying this stuff. And so I get all of that. But as a free-thinking, fully formed adult watching this movie, all I kept thinking about, as I said in the pre-show here, this movie feels so lazy and thrown together that you have elements of a really great movie here, and you decided not to do any of that.
And I also think that maybe there's some people that put this movie in that aforementioned sweet spot because they really like Lori Petty. And I like Lori Petty. I think she's a great actress. I loved her in Point Break. I really liked her on Orange is the New Black. But that's not enough for this movie just because you like Lori Petty.
Agreed. I love Michael Keaton, but, sometimes a Michael Keaton movie isn't that awesome.
And you had mentioned that, maybe there were some folks that when they were a kid – they saw this on HBO because this movie is R-rated. And I wonder if this wouldn't have worked better if it was packaged as a PG-13 and they dressed it up to be kind of like a Turtles movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that would be a better option. And also there, it seems like they're kind of sort of aiming this at girls, but there's so many scenes where she's stripping, or she's like half naked, or they overly sexualize her in times.
And I'm going to share a phrase that I only learned from reading the Max comics. I don't know if you're familiar with the Max. It had a little cartoon thing on Liquid Television for a while on MTV. But there's a character in the Max who's a social worker who dresses provocatively but is a feminist, and she talks about sex-positive feminism. And I think maybe the director of this was trying to capture some of that, but probably didn't do it as well as she could have, perhaps.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I do get that. I've dated those girls before, but the at issue is that there's a line. This, I'm already talking too much about this stuff, because this movie does not deserve a heated political debate on
You're right.
proto-feminism, because that's not what this movie is at all. When you have kangaroos doing beat poetry in the third act of your movie, you don't have a movie.
Well, it's not just any kangaroo. It's the kangaroo with the best voice in all of kangaroodom.
That's right, my brother.
I knew we would get it. But according to what I read, didn't really check my facts, so don't go on Reddit and start arguing with people using me as your evidence. But according to what I read, it said that at one point Disney actually offered to be the studio to produce this film, and the director attached said no because they wanted the R rating.
Like Disney proper or Touchstone?
Well, all I read was Disney, but that could have even meant like Miramax or something.
This time it would probably be outside Miramax, but maybe a Touchstone, because I don't know. It's tough to say.
Is New Line like a sub-Disney company too?
No, they're their own company.
Okay.
Yeah, at this point. Now they're Warner Brothers.
Oh, are they really? Warner Brothers picked up New Line?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I did not know that.
But anyway, I knew that, it might have been Miramax or whatever, but Disney was the name attached to it, and the director said no, according to what I read, which may or may not be true.
What this director could have used was some parental supervision. We're constantly complaining about, there's too many cooks in the kitchen and we need one voice. But if your voice isn't strong enough, then maybe you shouldn't be at the helm of a multi-million-dollar movie,
And who did distribute this, Adam?
Oh, golly. I don't remember off the top of my head.
Was it Universal or?
I want to say Warner Brothers.
I kind of want to say Warner Brothers too, because DC actually did a comic book adaptation of the movie under Vertigo, I think, but they never did any of the actual American reprints of the Tank Girl comics. So I thought that was odd, and I wondered if maybe it was a Warner Brothers deal that made that happen.
I'm not seeing. I can't pull it up and do it at the same time. I'm not seeing. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
It might have just been one of those 90s things.
United Artists.
UA, that's right. I remember seeing it now. Gosh.
Aren't they sort of like a non-studio studio that's not around anymore?
I think at that time they've kind of sort of come back a little bit, but not really.
It feels like.
Isn't that like Groucho Marx's or somebody's?
Tom Cruise bought it after somewhere in the late 90s, not during Tank Girl, but like later than that. I know that.
Yeah.
It was Charlie Chaplin who founded it. Okay. Mm-hmm. I was just doing a little reading about UA.
And Pierce, yeah.
And apparently MGM owns UA now. I didn't know MGM was still a thing. Does somebody own MGM? I can never.
Actually, I think MGM just went through some bankruptcy not too long ago, man. They just some of these.
And
cats
the funny thing is,
water.
I think that Charlie Chaplin didn't get along with what's his name, Sam Goldwyn or somebody, like way back in the old studio days, and that's how UA came around. So to see that MGM owns it now is kind of funny.
Isn't this amazing?
Sam Goldwyn got the last laugh. Take that, the little tramp.
Well,
oh man,
I don't want to mention which was the one that had the disability.
It was actually Metro Pictures, not Goldwyn, but the guy that owned Metro Pictures before they were MGM. Anyway, that's not what people expected to hear this week.
This has been
because
Hollywood Minute.
It's because the movie is so scattered also that where do you go? Where do you go?
Well, I'll start off with this. Apparently, Malcolm McDowell said that he felt like this movie had a very Clockwork Orange flavor to it. Coming from Alex the Large himself. What do you guys think? Are you guys really feeling like Kubrickian subversive Clockwork Orange stuff here?
No, but it definitely wants you to think that it's that there's some themes on that, because she even has the eye makeup at one point of the main character of Clockwork Orange. Mm-hmm. You have Malcolm McDowell in it. You have there's a few references in this movie to Clockwork Orange, but there's none of the artistry, none of the undertones, none of the subtext of A Clockwork Orange. I mean, again, the subtext of this movie is, isn't she awesome? That's literally what the movie is trying to say to you.
Now, in the comics, the closest character to the character Malcolm McDowell plays that I'm aware of is President Hogan. So wouldn't this movie have been like a little bit better if they'd actually gotten Paul Hogan to play himself as a diabolical president of Australia?
No, it would have been way better, like 1,000 times better.
Especially if they have the whole bathroom accident at a UN meeting or whatever.
But at that point,
he might have too much ego to lampoon himself, though, from what I understand.
I would imagine
have you seen those Rob Zombie movies? He does.
He probably doesn't have that thing that Shatner has yet, where hey, I'm in on the joke. I would imagine he does not have that.
Well, he might have it now, but in '95, I mean, wasn't he misguided enough to think there was a market for Crocodile Dundee 3 right around '95?
Yeah, and he's trying to make other movies. He's in other things.
Oh man, but this would have been great if they got if they could get Paul Hogan to have a little fun with himself on this movie. I think it would have made it a more interesting movie.
I agree. I think there's a lot of different ways you could go with this. Because this movie doesn't know what it wants to be. I mean, is it funny? Is it a post-apocalyptic nightmare? Is it a musical? I mean, what is it? What is this movie?
Well, and also I think the movie falls into the same problem, and this is a weird comparison, but like the Garfield movies, it's hard to make a feature-length film based on source material that's told 3 panels at a time,
Keep going. I'm listening. Keep going.
So if this movie had maybe been, maybe been organized differently, like this maybe, because of the punk rock aesthetic of the source material, could have worked as a low budget, like a la Rock and Roll High School, which is what I think of as a tongue-in-cheek, cheesy punk rock movie that worked. It wouldn't have made as much money as it made being a studio production, but it also wouldn't have cost anywhere near as much to make.
What I'm thinking about is like something like Sharknado, where they're in on the joke with you. They know what they are. They make those movies for $11 in a book of McDonald's coupons, and
that's where Paul Hogan would have come in handy if they went the Sharknado
absolutely, man, absolutely. But again, this movie doesn't know what it wants to be, and it's sloppy, and it's like there's so much money thrown at this movie, and it's spent in the wrong places.
Take it. Do you know? Take a guess how much.
How much this movie cost?
Budget for this bad
$80 million.
And you said it's 95?
95.
I'm gonna guess $30 million.
Ooh, very close to the thing. 25.
Yeah.
Well, that's less than I thought, because it was kind of heavy on the production design, and they filmed it all, believe it or not, in the U.S. Like when I'm watching this, I just assume immediately this is all being filmed in Australia, where a lot of things that need big expanses of desert are filmed, but this thing was filmed in New Mexico and Arizona.
Wow, really? I did not know that.
Only grossed to $6 million though, so did not make any money.
But if they'd made it for $250,000, that would have been a heck of a return.
Well, exactly. You could make this movie for all you need really is the tank and a desert. That's what you need to make this movie right.
Yeah. And, how much did, of course, you'd have to adjust a little bit for inflation, but how much do you think George Miller spent on the original Mad Max?
Well, that is a very good question, sir, but also keep in mind the original Mad Max is, I understand, a beloved movie. The first Mad Max is very, very boring. The reason why everyone loves Mad Max is because the end of that movie. It's got a great third act.
But I mean, this could have worked in that gritty indie Aussie cinema style, and it wouldn't have cost a lot to make. And I'm going to say, Mad Max is not significantly worse than this movie, I suppose.
No, it is a far better movie for sure. And also, I love the idea of doing that for Tank Girl that they do in Mad Max, where people are speaking English and there's still subtitles to it anyway.
I love that. Yeah,
that is such a great idea.
I love it, man. I love it. And, of course, they probably couldn't have had Lori Petty if they did that, but that's okay. You know, like I said, Lori Petty's great. She would have found something else to do for that 3 months or so. Maybe Point Break 2 would have been made if not for this movie.
So, Adam, when you're watching this movie, are you flashing back to that time, or are you just like, what are they thinking here? Like, what are your thoughts while you're watching this movie?
Here's what's interesting to me, because I was like 13, I guess 12, 13, something like that when this movie came out, right? And you're just getting out of middle school there, going into high school and everything. And Adam is deep into, starting to dip his toes in the punk rock water, right? And I am surprised that because everybody knew about this, if you had like Wizard or whatever, but this is all pre-internet, obviously. But if you, saw, oh, look, this Tank Girl thing's coming. So you knew what it was, broad strokes.
You're talking about Wizard magazine.
Yeah. So they'd say, hey, here comes a movie. And then when it came out, it's just like, I don't really care. I think had 13-year-old Adam saw this movie, probably would have just pushed him down that punk rock road even faster. And I sat through this and I was like, I can't believe that I did not see this. Because this would have been right in my wheelhouse back then.
I think this misses all the notes of punk rock, though. This is like a poser, if ever there was a poser, in my opinion.
I totally agree with you, but that's also a very 90s movie. I mean, to be honest with you, where over and over and over again, people are getting the themes wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, look at.
And sometimes I do forget this was 95. I forget what 1995 was like because I was actually very, very busy academically in 95 and out of touch with the rest of the world for most of that year.
Me too. I had my first kid, but 2 years. Sorry. In 2 years, I'd have my first kid. But there's the problem with this. The problem with this genre at this time is that they're doing it piecemeal. Like no one really is catching the spirit of the comic, if not a literal translation of the comic itself.
Yeah.
With everything. I mean, even Batman. That's not really the spirit of the Batman comic books, but it's closer than anything else got, that Michael Keaton Batman.
Yeah.
And it really was the closest we had come at that point. You're because you're coming out with movies like The Phantom and the Flash TV show and things where it's just like, man, you guys almost have it, but not yet. Like you're just not there yet.
See, to me,
that's why Blade is so beloved for older dudes like you and me, Bruce, is because it was the first time we saw something where we were like, that is way better than it needed to be. And now, when you look back, now that comic book movies are well made, you look back at Blade and you're like, wow, that is really not good.
Exactly, man. Everything is a product of its time. And like I said, I sometimes forget this was 95. It feels like it should have been. And, you think I'm being silly, but it feels a little bit more like 98 or 99. And those 3 or 4 years make a big difference in comic book movies.
Oh, it's a huge difference. I totally agree with you, man. I mean, you have because when's the first X-Men movie? 2000?
99, I
99, I think. Yeah.
It is 99. When X-Men comes out, that really is the shift, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Where after X-Men comes out, then you start getting all of the quote real superhero movies unquote. Like Raimi's Spider-Man comes out, and even though when you watch that movie now, you're like, wow, that is not great. It's better than you think.
Yeah, I agree with that absolutely.
And that's only that. I mean, geez, man, if X-Men comes out in 99, that's only 4 years. That's only 4 years after this movie comes out. And those two movies are night and day.
Now, I guess what would really, in my opinion, illustrate how much of a difference those 3 years make, not just for comic book movies, but just the way that pulp pop and pulp culture are interpreted as a whole. There's the scene with Jet Girl, Naomi Watts, and Lori Petty, where the prison guard's trying to sort of force Naomi Watts into doing something she doesn't want to do. Tank Girl walks in, kisses Naomi Watts on the lips, and it disgusts the prison guard. In 1999, that prison guard is not being disgusted by that. You know what I mean?
Yes. Very true.
Like when I saw that, I thought that would be the worst possible strategy to make the situation better, in my opinion.
X-Men comes out in 2000, by the way.
Okay, cool.
But it was in production in 99. How about you shut up?
Well, there's this thing, Adam, that I try to get I try to get everybody on board on. It's not just shooting from the hip with like, hey, this is the fact, when you don't actually know what you're talking about. So what I try to do is, if we get something wrong, I like to say, hey, by the way, we got that wrong. Because now there's not, you're not just in a room with 5 of your friends. You're actually got, there's like 10,000 people a month listening to our show. Yeah. So it would be nice to have the facts correct while we're broadcasting our show,
And I always come up with ways to argue the alternative facts. I define the year by fiscal year from July 1st to June 30th. So if you look at the fiscal year, it was still 99, I think.
Okay. All right.
No, for a very long time, because of my chosen profession and academic endeavors, my year does run from July 1st to June 30th. So sometimes the years will blur, which was it 99 or was it 2000? Was it 98? Was it 99? That happens to me a lot.
It's called the Leslerian calendar.
I go from solstice to solstice, but the summer one, not the winter one.
I only go by the Mayan calendar, which means we're all dead now.
They just ran out of paper. That's what happened.
We're all dead now.
Speaking of solstice, when I worked at a TV station, we'd have the overnight stuff, and you get the craziest people calling in to the assignment desk, right? And someone did call up on like one Saturday. It had to be like probably 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, and they just go, "Hey, when's the winter solstice?" That's what they do with their time. They decide to call up a news station at 3 a.m. and go, "Hey, when's the winter solstice?" We're like, "Are you kidding me?" They're like, "Let me talk to the meteorologist. He's not here."
You were the proto Google,
He's not
man.
Here.
You were the proto Google. I used to work at the reference desk in a library, and I got stuff like that too.
It's exactly what it was. It's just like, and it was before like everyone had a computer in their pocket and everything. So,
yeah, when I got a job at the library, I have no idea why they thought I'd be well suited to the reference desk, but that's where they put me.
Who knew?
But I want to talk about some, I don't want to say wasted, but like underutilized talent in this movie, because there's some people that seem to not necessarily be necessary for the small part they had. And I think it goes just a little beyond a cameo, but it's like they could have given that same actor a bigger part and probably had a better product. But the first one is like James Hong, who, for genre movie fans, he's going to make a little grin come across your face. Don't you think they could have used James Hong a little bit more in this movie?
Now that you mentioned
man, you got the guy from Conan the Barbarian. Use him.
Was he in Big Trouble in Little China?
Yeah.
That's what I thought. Yeah. So, man, that's a guy. You need to have him doing all kinds of crazy stuff. You want a crazy, diabolical punk rock style bad guy for this crazy, diabolical punk rock style anti-hero? Have James Hong out there with a robot army or something.
People I know that have met James
He's
Hong?
in Blade Runner, for God's sake.
Now, did you guys know that Subgirl was in this movie? Like, I think we all understood that Jet Girl and Tank Girl were in it. But did you appreciate that we had an appearance from Subgirl?
I barely recognized any names, and it was hard to remember who was who and what was.
Was there a scene that seemed to involve a submarine to you?
No,
not that I can.
Exactly, but Ann Cusack's character was Subgirl, and that's
really?
A significant enough character from the comics that it was not only underutilized, but why even credit her as Subgirl when there is absolutely nothing in context that would make me think she was on a sub other than, she says, "Fix this up in my garage," and when they leave, the doors like pop open in the sand and they fly out of it. But that was a submarine buried in the desert. They didn't really communicate that well that Ann Cusack was Subgirl, did they?
Definitely not.
So, and then, of course, hey, Iggy Pop, how about being a pedophile?
They're like,
you
well,
got
we
an
need
actual
you to be
punk rocker in the punk rock movie, and that's what you have him do?
we need you to be tiny and creepy. Wait, what, did you come dressed already? What's going on?
I don't have any Crow movies to make for a couple of years. I'll do it.
I need something to build me to my Crow 2 career.
And then you get Reggie Cathy, who at this time probably, I don't know, was Reggie Cathy appreciated in 95 like he is now, Sean?
No.
But you do get Ice-T, who had not yet found the never-ending money bin that would be Law and Order.
But Ice-T is second
he
build
was
on this
famous
flick.
enough that do you necessarily want to hide him behind half a pound of Stan Winston prosthetics?
That's more than half a pound. I'll tell you that right now.
Well, I think that they're using Ice-T because it seems punk rock to have Ice-T in your movie as a kangaroo. But here's the thing. Reggie Cathy is 1,000 times better actor than Ice-T. Just have Ice-T be the guy who comes in every so often like, I don't like her, and then walks away.
Yeah.
You have Reggie Cathy be the guy.
Yeah,
you don't have Ice-T be the one with all the lines when there's kangaroos around.
But let's just be honest here. Let's say instead of Ice-T, they cast a guy that was kind of like Ice-T. That would have worked just as well for me. Because nothing really screamed like if I didn't know for sure it was Ice-T, I could have been fooled.
True.
I was waiting for the Ice Cube thing to drop any second now. I don't.
No. And then, and of course, all these characters are reincarnated. So Reggie Cathy's character was a reincarnation of Jack Kerouac, and Ice-T was a reincarnated cop, which watching it now, you think it's a joke about his character on Law and Order. But I have to remember that in 1995, we're only about 2 to 3 years beyond the big controversy about his album titled Cop Killer.
Right.
That he did with Body Count. So I guess that's supposed to be sort of a in your face, like the guy that sings about killing cops is a reincarnated cop. I don't know. I didn't think it worked real well in any context, to be honest.
I heard it was a wink to Tipper Gore saying, "What's up?"
Oh, that wow! I'm sure Tipper Gore was in a tiff after watching this movie for the third time.
I mean, Doug Jones is one of the rippers in this movie. Like, use him. He's good.
And all I'm waiting for is how do you not put John Stamos in here so it can be Jesse and the Rippers?
Because I don't think anyone's going to get that except for like a very, very specific demographic.
I think you would have made a very handsome kangaroo. That's all I'm saying.
You're not wrong
there.
there.
No one denies that.
He could have been Booga.
So honestly, like I saw some of the reviews on IMDb, and I don't want to say the majority, but more than a handful were of the, hey man, this bestiality stuff ain't good.
Well, that was the concern the studio had, because I won't repeat the text that I shared, but they actually made a costume to put more emphasis on the bestiality rather than just have it be implied bestiality. So at least this is the more conservative cut of the human kangaroo coitus reactions.
What do you mean, like a shot of a train going into a tunnel? What do you mean?
Exactly. A train hopping through a tunnel.
I don't know. Like this whole movie is just the most bizarre. It's like it's almost several sketches, but smashed into an entire movie.
Well, that's kind of what Tank Girl is. It's just short gags, short gags, not really an overarching plot. I think they could have made it work. Like I said, Rock and Roll High School, the big plot doesn't really matter. It's the gags that matter. Even a really talented director could have found a way that it's like the plot is so convoluted, you lose it by the end and nobody really cares about who wins or loses, kind of a Big Lebowski style approach. But it's just not done because they almost try too hard to make it conform to a sort of a typical three-act structure while trying to hang on to the non sequitur nature. They need to go one way or the other. And it should have been.
Yeah, you know what this movie could have used actually is just making it 3 different little stories like that. Like, instead of having one giant movie with 3 acts, just have 3 small stories, and it would have been a lot more satisfying.
Or even take like the Simpsons approach, where it starts out where it's like the story seems to sound like they're building a new bookstore in town. On the way to the bookstore, something happens, and then it becomes about that until something else happens. Then at the end, they're like, whatever happened to that bookstore? Oh, I forgot about that. That would work here too.
That would work too, for sure. Hey, what happened to that big bad guy in the desert?
Oh, I guess he's still there. I don't know. Who cares about him? Instead, they decide what we really want is a Cole Porter musical number.
A very large one too, like old Hollywood style, massive musical number in the middle of this movie. Which, don't get me wrong, the middle of this movie needed something, but this was not it.
And I want to talk a little bit more about the R rating, because in 1995, if I was going to see an R movie, I know that there are a couple of different reasons. There can be violence, there can be disturbing issues being dealt with, or there can be nudity. And based on the movie poster, based on whatever trailers I would have seen, I would have went into this thinking that I'm not expecting an R-rated movie for language and violence. I'm expecting a little more, sensual entertainment than what we got here.
I was going to call it Bob Bob Boom.
And now we have the name of your next book, the title of your next book, Sensual Entertainment.
I like that. That's the name of my band, man. I'm going to get Eddie Murphy to sing backup.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Put your hands together for Sensual Entertainment.
This movie, again, I know we're going off the rails here. If you're just listening to this, hoping for a regular, like a regular beat by beat breakdown, it's impossible to do with this movie because it's just everywhere, all over the place.
Well, I still want to talk about that Cole Porter musical number because, once again, seems like an odd choice for this movie. But, they had like the punk rock remix, like the lady starts out singing it kind of traditional, then it turns into a big production with the apocalyptic rockettes out there and everything. And that punk rock remix was sang by Joan Jett and Paul Westerberg, which at least they had some, I think those are good choices if you're going to do a punk rock remake of one of the classic standard songs.
Yeah, the whole movie could use that, actually.
Because around 1995, I still had quite the dyslexic heart, so I was just nice to see Paul Westerberg getting some work since the movie singles came out.
Oh, Paul Westerberg.
Yeah, and then, this movie probably should have introduced the Ripper sooner. And not really worried about what the missions were. Get a better bad guy. Make James Hong your bad guy. Give Ann Cusack a little bit more to do. And probably take out the whole creepy Iggy Pop and the schoolgirl thing. And also this worst imaginable torture that they can come up with is being slid down a tube. That seems like a lot of work for don't get me wrong, it would be unpleasant, but you got to build this big 300-yard long tube. You could probably do the same thing with just like a little casket or something.
Yeah, it's the old Austin Powers. Just give me a gun. I'll shoot him right here, right now.
Or they could have gone Austin Powers with it and had it pay off because, he said the tube gets narrower and narrower, and just have her come out looking like a spaghetti noodle at the end and blow into her thumb and reinflate herself. That's what the comic would have done.
Now, depending upon the amount, the size and how quickly it goes down, she might just end up going just kind of to a nice soft stop. I don't know. What's the degree of the tilt on that bad boy? All I can think of is just if she slows down enough, it'll be a nice little cozy stop there. It won't do nothing to you.
And I got to tell you, man, never underestimate my disinterest in manual labor. Because if I was on a chain gang and they said, you work harder or you're going in the tube, I'd be like, you know what? Tube's not so bad. I'll stay down there till I really got to go to the bathroom pretty bad. And then I'll say, okay, I'll work for a little bit, go to the bathroom, get back in the tube.
Send me to the tube.
I remember, one time I was given the task of mowing the grass in the backyard one summer, and I wasn't doing a very good job. So my dad thought he would shame me by having my cousin, who was 2 years younger, go out there and mow the grass and make me watch him do a better job than me. Got to be honest, best punishment ever. I loved it. I was punish me like this all the time. I don't clean my room, make me watch my cousin clean my room. Don't do my chores. Let me watch my cousin do my chores. Perfect punishment.
we had that in gym in like middle school. We would like, they would dress out and everything. Then we'd like mess around. And they're like, hey, quit it. We're going to make you dress back in. And we were like, all right. So we just kept being jerks. And they were like, all right, go change your clothes and go sit in the bleachers for the rest of the period. Like, this is the best thing we've ever done.
You guys, we have completely different lives. Our lives are so vastly different, I can't even tell you.
You never got the backyard mowing punishment?
No, I just mowed it. And, the funny thing is, because growing up in Connecticut, you mow the yard, and my parents have, a pretty small yard, so it's not that big a deal. But the hard thing was shoveling the driveway, because you have to shovel the driveway constantly. Yeah. And so I am shoveling the driveway until I leave to move on with my life, not living with my parents anymore. And literally the year I leave, parents buy a snowblower. I couldn't believe it.
That sounds about right.
I was so red hot when it happened.
The closest I came to that is my family never got HBO until I went to college.
How did you ever make it?
Man, I'm going to peel back the curtain a little bit. My house didn't have a VCR until after I went away to college. And that's, I didn't go to college like that long ago. I mean, everybody else had a VCR.
Grandpa Bruce, tell me what the covered wagons were like. Speaking of old people, isn't it awesome that Naomi Watts looks better while she's older? Even that lady's just getting better looking, in my opinion.
You know what? She's starting from a pretty good spot, so I'm going to call it a wash.
I'm not going to say that. I'm not saying it's a 45% increase in the looks department. No, it's just I don't know.
It does appear that she's drinking the blood of babies or something.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
She looks the same.
Yeah,
I'm sure. Charlize Theron's doing that right now.
Like, there's a part of me, the first time I had seen this in a while, and I saw Naomi Watts was in it, and when I saw this movie in the past, I didn't know who Naomi Watts was, but when I saw it again, saw her name pop up in the credits, I'm like, oh, I didn't know she was in this. I don't remember. I'm going to have to see who she played. So I assume she's the little girl that's like 10 years old. I'm like,
that's what I assumed as well.
Yeah, and then I found out, oh, no, she's Jet Girl.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's like 60 years old, but she looks like she's 20.
Man, she must live next door. Is she Australian, Naomi Watts?
Yes.
Okay, so she must live next door to that lady that used to be married to Tom Cruise. I can't think of her name right now, but
Nicole Kidman.
She still looks pretty darn good for 72 years old or whatever she is.
I was waiting for the shoe to drop with that when you just go Nicole Kidman and you go, no.
I'm talking about Mimi Rogers, buddy. Mimi Rogers looks wonderful. She don't look a day over 72.
All right, so I'm gonna. This is tough for me because I had every single emotion watching this movie. I mean, it's
even indigestion.
A little bit. But I was just so it starts out and I'm just like, oh, I see what they're doing. Oh, this is terrible. Wait a minute. Are they aware of what they're doing? Maybe no, they can't be. But it's got to be. Maybe they are. And I just kind of went through that just left and right and center. And by the end of it, I go, no, they definitely know what they're doing here. I don't think anything that's on screen is done I don't want to say a joke per se, because it feels like it is also a joke at the same time, but was done specifically, They weren't just being crappy. They were kind of almost being crappy on purpose.
Okay.
I don't believe that. I don't think that that's what that is. I think that it's I think it's someone who isn't doing their job. It's someone who's like, you know what, that seems pretty good. That's good enough. That's literally what this movie feels like. It's not someone like, hey, isn't it super punk rock if we don't care? Like, that is not what this is. Because not caring means that you're not going to put in the money for these things. You're not going to put in the money. Like, I can't even imagine what Lori Petty is like on set, but I'm imagining it's not wonderful. I'm sorry I keep cutting you off, Bruce.
Well, to me, it feels like what I would say, to put it in more modern terms, it feels like somebody who really, really likes Harley Quinn T-shirts, really likes some Harley Quinn action figures in their collection, but hasn't actually read any Harley Quinn comics, doesn't really know what the character's about, saying, yeah, I love Harley Quinn, I'm going to make the movie. I feel like this person saw some Tank Girl tattoos on some lady friends or something. Maybe this person looked at a couple of strips, just like the aesthetic, and thought they understood the character without really understanding the character. That's how I feel.
Well, the writer who isn't one of the writers of the source material is this guy named Teddy Serafian, and his biggest credits besides Tank Girl are Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines.
Mm-hmm. Excellent movie.
No. I'm sorry. I have to disagree with you. And a bunch of movies like Grind. Or like a bunch of stuff that looks like schlockbuster movies, where it's like, hey, Poltergeist is a thing. Let's make a movie called Altergeist.
Yeah, gotcha, man. Transmorphers.
Yes, exactly. Only he actually wrote something called Altergeist.
Oh, I thought you were just going up with the most ludicrously absurd illustration.
Nope, the reality was the craziest thing.
Oh, man. Well, and also I put a lot of, I don't know, I don't want to say, I guess blame's the only word, but I put a lot of this at the foot of the director, because at the end of the day, that's the person who maybe could have turned this into something a little bit better.
Rachel Talalay, and her biggest credit besides Tank Girl is Freddy's Dead.
Okay, well, Freddy's Dead. Is that good, Adam? I don't know if I remember it.
No, it is not.
Okay,
No,
so there we go. But, put this in the hands of someone maybe who gets it, like Catherine Bigelow. This would have been a different movie.
Absolutely, it would have. And, she's one of those people also that now is a television director. So she directs Sherlock and The Flash and Supergirl and Legends of Tomorrow, all that
this
stuff.
Says, to me, that says something about her, right? Because, she's got, after this was just mega TV for her. So that she knows how to deliver.
Yeah. Well, man, I'm trying to think if I have any other. I don't know that I have any other things to point out. I think that's about it with me, other than maybe just mentioning Harley Quinn. I threw that name out there, and Harley Quinn started in Batman the Animated Series, so she was probably around by 95. But I think
probably.
What this movie's trying to capture is what maybe this Tank Girl was perhaps to the Gen Xers what Harley Quinn is now to the millennials, the sex positive anarchist strong female character.
Yeah, no, I could see that. Makes sense.
Yeah, I totally can. I absolutely can. And I think that you're smart to bring that up, Bruce, because she really is. I mean, Harley Quinn is just a much more fully realized character than Tank Girl, though.
Yeah, with a bit of a damaged background that we don't really know anything about Tank Girl's background other than her parents named her Fonzie.
Right.
I will say this, though. Had Harley Quinn 1995, I think Lori Petty would have done just a fine job.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely.
I think she would have fell in quite well there. All right, now before we get down to it, we have to find out how this movie relates back to our good old friend Sylvester Stallone.
Hey, thanks, Adam. I have a prepared statement.
Oh.
Stallone is everywhere. And Lori Petty's been around for a very long time, long enough that she was on the TV show The Equalizer, a show my mom watched religiously when I was a kid, and boy, oh boy, she loved watching that old British dude blow away scumbags. I only remember two things about that show. One, The Equalizer drove a Jaguar, and two, there was a surprisingly large number of people being murdered on a network television show. Anyway, in 1993, the good people at Warner Brothers wanted to make a movie about a man, a demolition man. So they cast Lori Petty, Wesley Snipes, and a guy I'm pretty sure has never asked the question, do you know where I could buy a really good used car? Sylvester Stallone. We've spoken about Demolition Man before on HMP on a really great episode that I totally looked up and did the research on, but I don't want to tell you about because I like to keep things mysterious because chicks dig mystery. If HMPers can remember, no one really got along on the set of Demolition Man, but producer Joel Silver and Lori Petty really didn't get along, to the point that Joel Silver on the third day of shooting woke up, made himself a cup of coffee, drove into work, probably checked his email, because he's an early adopter, and fired Lori Petty. I think a deal was struck because neither side is talking about what happened, actually. But I'd like to think that the conversation went something like this. Lori, I'm Joel Silver, and I've decided I'm getting out of the Lori Petty business, so why don't you clean out your locker and take your weird sexual energy with you?
Best impersonation yet.
Thank you. Joel Silver then replaced Lori Petty with a relatively unknown Sandra Bullock, who would go on the bigger, better movies like The Net and Speed 2 Cruise Control. Lori Petty, of course, would go on to what I presume is a drug addiction in a movie called Karate Dog, which I've never seen, so I have no idea what it could possibly be about. To be fair, I looked for any real mention of drug problems with the lady, and there wasn't anything there but rumors and innuendo, so maybe she's never had a problem, but come on. I mean, come on. You know. Come on. So there you have it, HMPers. This week's Stallone connection. Now, Kangaroo Guy played by Ice-T and Kangaroo Guy played by Reggie Cathy. Let's review this movie so we can make our own insane post-apocalyptic movie that involves gratuitous shots of Bruce in various states of undress.
I'm all for it.
All right, here on Hero Movie Podcast, we have our own patented Robin rating system. If you'd like to see what that is, go on down to facebook.com/Hero Movie Podcast, and it'll be right there at the top of the screen. Bruce, where does Tank Girl fall on the H&P scale for you, sir?
Well, I'd like to read a little something from a 1997 book called Trash Aesthetics, Popular Culture and Its Audience, written by Deborah Cartmel. This book states that while the comic book showed Tank Girl to be unheroic or even an accidental anti-hero, the film sets her up with classic Western generic emotional and moral justifications for her liberation and revenge on W&P. She witnesses the slaughter of her boyfriend and her trusty steed. Now, the reason that I read that quote is that I thought cutting and pasting was easier than forming my own thoughts. So that must make this a Stephanie Brown.
Keenan, what do you got?
It's a Stephanie Brown also, because what Bruce said. No. It's a Stephanie Brown for me, too, because I find it lazy. And, you know, the apocalypse is at least interesting, right? I mean, it's supposed to be interesting. Yeah. There is very little that is interesting about this movie. You know, I think you have Tank Girl, you have a tank, you have the desert. You can make that movie for probably, like, right now, realistically, you could probably make that movie for $1 million and do something far superior to what was made here. So there you have it, Stephanie Brown.
Okay. So normally I would probably go Stephanie Brown, but there's something weird about this. Like I said, this should have been like right around my era, be able for me to do it. I never saw it. And something about it does just kind of bring you back to that kind of time and stuff and go, wow, I can't believe that this wasn't a thing that I was kind of into. It would have been right up my alley. And while it's not good, I can't go as far as to say that it's terrible either. And I think in many ways it was kind of almost ahead of its time. I don't know why that it seems like almost a crazed internet culture would probably like this more.
Do you mean because it's so lazy?
Well, maybe, but yeah, it's so, but like it is, it's like a lot of, you know, kind of YouTube, if you will, of like, here's a pop, here's a pop, here's a pop, and you get little bits of it as opposed to, you know, one big giant narrative or whatever. It's just, I don't know, it's weird, and I can't say that I didn't hate it at the end of the day, so I'm going Carrie Kelly on this one.
Weird choice.
I know, I can't even, I'm gonna like I said, this is my first time watching it. I'll watch it again, and I can't believe at the beginning of
really
this,
for funsies you would watch this movie again.
I think so. It's weird because I like beforehand I was just like, well, this is going to be a waste of my time, and this will be something that I'll watch once and then never again. And an odd part of me wants to watch it again, and I don't know why.
Hey, some people pierce their eyelids for fun. Some people watch Tank Girl a second time.
Hey,
At the end of the year, we need to ask Adam how many times he's seen Tank Girl.
You know what? I'm making a note right now.
Good. All right. Well, that is it, everybody. We did it. We got through the month, and thank you to everyone down at patreon.com/HMP for coming in, voting and stuff. There'll be another vote there, and guess what? I didn't forget. You thought I forgot? I didn't forget. I remembered. We got our last drawing, everybody.
Oh, and I just want to make an announcement. Before and after the comic book connection, I did not hear a stinger.
I've got it. We just didn't play it because we'd forgotten.
I got it.
You interpret the rules, Sean. Does he get to keep his eyebrow?
Let's hear it. Do you have it?
It's time for Bruce's comic book connection.
The eyebrow stays.
Yep, that was worthy.
Very good.
I told you. We got into a groove, and because all the stuff. But let's.
Oh, hey, do you want me to read that review, or do you want to hold off on that?
Yeah, shucks. Let's go ahead and do that. Well, I'll go ahead and I'll rip a name here out of the old hat.
Out of the old hat.
I hope it's somebody else in Australia.
You know what? You just need to be quiet over there. Don't be giving me any of these.
Do you want me to do this while you want me to do this while you're doing that?
I got it. So Robert, your name has been drawn. Robert Nunnery, give me a email or actual address, and we'll hook it up. Oh, I didn't say what it was, did I?
No.
It's an electric guitar, you said.
No. They wouldn't want that one anyway. So what this is it's actually Marvel Collector's Corps back in the day. They sent me the first box twice. So I'm going to get you the exclusive Ironmonger pop toy that came in that.
Wow.
That was the only place that you could get that.
Wow.
Wow, man. That is an odd choice for an exclusive Ironmonger, but I like the character.
It's really cool in the little head bobbles, but he's bigger than all the other kind of standard ones, so it's pretty dope that way. But yeah.
Is there a bald Jeff Bridges inside?
No. Well, not Ironmonger. What was the shucks. That's not the
War
one.
Machine or something, or who are you thinking of?
Oh, the one in Civil War. Not Civil War, the Hulkbuster. Hulkbuster's what I meant.
Okay, Hulkbuster.
My brain just went big giant monster.
That's why I thought Ironmonger was a really odd choice.
No, I guess that's what all I was thinking was big and just transposing this. That didn't make. You're right. It didn't make a lot of sense that way. But that's what it is. Not the other thing.
Well,
Hulkbuster.
You might get taken to court by the winner, Robert Nunnery, because you did say Ironmonger, so you may have to produce that or else go to jail.
Listen, lock me up. I'm done.
You're doing 15 to 30 for false Ironmonger promises.
That's how they get you. But yeah, thank you guys so much for that, and we really appreciated that. Sean, let's go ahead and that's it. We can't do it today, man. We're all out of order. So sometimes we like to take a little bit of time out to talk about how you guys have taken the time out to go and review us on iTunes. I wasn't allowed to read this review, so Sean, what do we got for us?
Well, this is a 5-star, aka Humdinger. And this one has spoilers, so it's probably good that we put it at the end of the show.
There you are.
And it is entitled "Thank You, Adam," and it is written by Random Black Fella. It's literally his name, Random Black Fella. Probably my favorite iTunes name ever, Random Black Fella. He says, "I want Sean or Bruce to read this. I just want to say thank you, Adam, for ruining my day. It was an early Monday morning. I was at work listening to my favorite podcast, HMP. Then I heard Adam say something. These words that came out of Adam's mouth are an abomination to mankind. In parentheses, spoiler alert, he said that Yondu dies in the new Guardians movie. I know what y'all are thinking. Why haven't you seen the movie yet? Well, I tried to see it on opening night, but I got called into work, and I had no more opportunity to watch it. So I just want to say thank you, Adam, for ruining my week. LOL. Here's a 5-star review, a.k.a. Humdinger. Love the podcast."
Man, that Random Black Fellow is awesome because he gave us the 5-star Humdinger despite our, what do you call that? Pulling a... what was the thing in the bowling movie whenever you a Munson? Yeah.
You got Munson. Yeah. totally got Munson.
Here's the thing. Go back and listen to that Guardians episode. We specifically, because we knew it was going to be a new one where a lot of people that hadn't listened to our podcast before grab on board. They always do with the big flicks like that. I specifically even stopped and said, hey, from this point on out, spoilers. You had a warning in there. Just because you didn't hear it doesn't mean that it wasn't there. So, and you knew, we knew about it. It was like 20 minutes into the show. There's no excuse.
Sean, do you mind if I give Adam some advice?
Please.
Just say I'm sorry and move on.
All right, I'm sorry.
Yeah. There's this thing called choosing your battles, Adam, and
this
you're
is
not
the hill
great
we
at
shall
that.
die upon.
Listen.
If you die on every hill, Adam, you don't move forward. But I do have to say, Adam did say, spoiler warning, that there's going to be massive spoilers in our review. He didn't hear it, but he also has a good sense of humor about it. That he still gave us a 5-star review. I don't know how many people would be that charitable.
No, it's saint amongst men.
So thank you, random black fella.
And you know what? I think he's not really random.
What, you think he's a ringer?
Yeah.
He's a ringer.
I have bought in a couple of ringers for iTunes reviews. But by the way, guys, we are almost up to 100. Very, 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 very close. I think we're like 3 or 4 away. If you haven't done it, just go ahead and do that. We'd be really appreciative of it.
Please, so we can keep saying humdinger.
It's fun, right? You like it. I like it. Just make it happen, okay? So that is it, everybody. Next week it happens, doesn't it, guys? I'm pretty sure it does. My brain just
Wonder Woman.
Yeah, Wonder Woman. I was pretty sure. I was just like, you ever get that?
Next week Wonder Woman is?
Yeah.
And I promise you, here and now, there will be no mention of Harry Peter next week.
You sure?
What a tease. Anyways, but we're gonna be doing that. So I'm excited. I haven't watched too much on the Wonder Woman, so I'm curious as to what they're gonna do. But we'll talk about that next week, everybody. Until then, Bruce, where can we find more of your work on the internet this week, sir?
You go straight to Amazon, Amazon.com. Look for Chubby Wizard, Wrath of the Manticore, my 5-star rated book that a lot of people seem to enjoy. Gotten some feedback that says, I like the first book, but this one's amazing, which is their way of saying, the first book wasn't so good, but this one's okay, maybe. But anyway, you want to check it out. I think it's a lot of fun. Action comedy, $1.99 for the ebook, $7.99 for the paperback. Free to read for people that subscribe to Kindle Unlimited, though I don't know if any of those people listen. If you know somebody who is, tell them about it.
Bruce, do you just go, they're going to get it, maybe? Yeah, that's fine. Keenan.
You can find me at Hero Movie Sean on Twitter.
And, of course, everything that we do at Facebook.com/Hero Movie Podcast on the tweets and all that kind of good stuff. Thank you guys so much for listening. Join us next week when we talk a little bit about Wonder Woman. For Sean Keenan, Bruce Leslie, I'm Adam Portrais. Stay super, everybody.
Bye, Marty and Evie.